She is particularly famous across the world now in the Iskcon universe for focusing on compassionate communication and assisting and coaching devotees on that. I personally have been a beneficiary of Mother's coaching. She describes herself as a coach and a cheerleader, not a counselor. And she is therefore the author of Revealing the Heart, Practice of Compassion. This is a memoir of her experiences integrated with new discoveries in compassionate communication. She's also working on 2 new books. We're hoping to get them released soon and distributed. And she's a mother of 3, grandmother of 2, and coach of many. Her Grace Sukavaha Mataji ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Channa Vallabha Girivanadari Jaya Gopi Channa Vallabha Girivanadari Yasodanandana Brajanaranjana Yasodanandana Brajanaranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajikacharya Astatar Satashi Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Nanta Kota Vaishnavrinda ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki. Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki. Srila Ishvara Puri Maharaj Thakur ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto number 5, Chapter 9, Text number 3. We'll do the word for word and then the translation and purport. Tatrāpi. In that Brahmana birth also, svajana-saṅgāc, from association with relatives and friends. Cha, and bhṛśam, greatly. Udvijamāno, being always afraid that he would fall down again. Bhagavataḥ, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Karma-bandha, the bondage of the reactions of fruitive activities. Vidadhad, which vanquishes. Shravana, hearing. Smarana, remembering. Guṇa-vivaraṇa, hearing descriptions of the qualities of the Lord. Caraṇa-aravinda, lotus feet. Yugalam, the two. Manasā, with the mind. Vidadhad, always thinking of. Ātmanaḥ, of his soul. Pratighatam, obstruction on the path of devotional service. Ashaṅkamanaḥ, always fearing. Bhagavat-anugraheṇa, by the special mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anushmita, remembered, sva-pūrva, his own previous, janma-āvaliḥ, string of births, ātmanaḥ, himself, unmatta, mad, jada, dull, adha, blind, badhira, and deaf, svarūpeṇa. With these features, darshayam asha, he exhibited lokasha to people in general. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Due to his being especially gifted with the Lord's mercy, Bharat Maharaj could remember the incidents of his past life. Although he received the body of a Brahmana, he was still very much afraid of his relatives and friends who were not devotees. He was always very cautious of such association because he feared that he would again fall down. Consequently, he manifested himself before the public eye as a madman, dull, blind, and deaf, so that others would not try to talk to him. In this way, he saved himself from bad association. Within, he was always thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord and chanting the Lord's glories, which save one from the bondage of fruit of action. In this way, he saved himself from the onslaught of non-devotee associates. Purport. Every living entity is bound by different activities due to association with the modes of nature. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, kamanam guṇa-saṅgō swa-sadasat yani janmasu. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. We get different types of bodies among 8,400,000 species according to our karma. Karma-na-daiva-netrena. We work under the influence of material nature, contaminated by the three modes, and thus we get a certain type of body according to superior order. This is called karma-bandha. To get out of this karma-bandha, one must engage himself in devotional service. Then one will not be affected by the modes of material nature. Mam chayo vyabhi charena bhakti yogena sevate sagunam sammatit yaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at one transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14:26. To remain immune from the material qualities, one must engage himself in devotional service. Shravanam kirtanam Vishnu. This is the perfection of life. When Maharaj Bharat took birth as a Brahmana, he was not very interested in the duties of a Brahmana, but within he remained a pure Vaishnava, always thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord. As advised in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. This is the only process by which one can be saved from the danger of repeated birth and death. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gina Gina Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Śrīrūpam sāgajatam sahagana raghunatham vitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namoshtute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. In honor of the disappearance of Sri Ishvara Puri, I'd just like to say a few words. The qualities of pure devotees are such that they may remain hidden to ordinary persons, which we see here even in this verse with Jad Bharat. So Ishvara Puri was such a devotee. In his heart, he was always thinking of Krishna. And when he saw Nimai Pandit for the first time, he just became so attracted. And he knew that there was something extraordinary. He knew that this was the Supreme Lord. And yet, he just remained very humble and just in his heart, he connected. And he never put himself forward. He didn't put himself forward as an advanced devotee. Advanced devotees have no need for profit, adoration, distinction. They have no need for praise. It's irrelevant. They really only want to see how they can serve the Lord the best. And Ishvara Puri was such a devotee. And when he came in contact with Lord Chaitanya and was embraced by the Lord, the two of them became overwhelmed with tears of love. And I mean, looking at it materially, of course, Ishvara Puri did never think that he should be the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya also, as exhibiting the qualities of a devotee, didn't feel like he was above Ishvara Puri. In fact, he took the subordinate position. But when they met, they embraced and they connected in love. And in love, who's the superior and who's the junior, who's the guru, who's the disciple? In love, it's not so relevant. A devotee is willing to take any position. Lord Chaitanya wanted Ishvara Puri to be his spiritual master. Ishvara Puri had no conception that he was a spiritual master or he was the spiritual master of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He had no such conception. He was just offering whatever service the Lord asked. And Lord Chaitanya was exhibiting and manifesting and exemplifying how we honor others. And this honoring of others is the most elevated position, actually. In the material world, we're all trying to get honor. But in the spiritual world, everyone is trying to give honor. And that was the case of Ishvarapuri. And he very humbly, innocently, unassumingly took the role of being the spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so, in remembering him today, we can remember that a devotee is ready to do whatever the Lord wants, even if it's embarrassing, even if it's to become the spiritual master of the Lord. Whatever you want. The gopis took the dust of the Lord on their head. They took the dust of their feet, for the Lord's headache. Everybody else thought, I will go to hell. They were worried about the rules and regulations. but we're really working towards love of God, and so we want to really understand and focus that the rules and regulations are kind of like the guidelines to keep us on the road, on the path. Like the road has dotted lines and white lines, you're technically supposed to stay within those lines, even though that doesn't happen in India. So the guidelines are there to keep us on the road so we don't go off the road. But the road is meant to take us to love of God. So, Srila Ishvarapuri Maharaj Puripad Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So, in this verse, we're reading about Jad Bharat, who had a lot of ups and downs in his spiritual life. He was so elevated and practiced his devotional service so nicely. And then one day, a baby deer was left. The mother left her body, and the baby deer was helpless. And so out of compassion, was he Jad Bharat then? What was his name then? Jad Bharat? Bharat Maharaj. Bharat Maharaj started taking care of the deer, and naturally, the first person who takes care of us, we become attached to. So the deer became attached to Bharat Maharaj, and then Bharat Maharaj, was reciprocating, and then he didn't realize how he was getting attached. He didn't see it. And sometimes that happens to us also. And that's why devotee association is so important, because devotees are there to help us to understand that, maybe we might want to take a look. Devotee association is there to give us feedback. And sometimes, as young devotees, we get an overabundance of feedback. Sometimes it's too much feedback. We're struggling to just stay here in the temple, and it seems like everybody is our senior, and so everybody's giving us feedback of what we should do and what we shouldn't do and how we should do it and how we shouldn't do it. And it can become a little overwhelming. So we do our best, and we pray to Krishna to help us to sort through the feedback and not become too anxious with so much feedback. Then, as we progress in spiritual life, maybe people aren't giving us so much feedback, and we might feel, finally, I can try to figure this out here. Maybe we just have one or two people who give us feedback. sometimes it's easy to take feedback from a senior because we see them as more advanced. However, when we can take feedback from peers, and even if a junior gives us feedback, maybe a junior is saying something, I don't know, in India maybe not so much, but we can really learn a lot from the feedback that comes to us. We can learn about how we're coming across. And if Judd Bharat would have had some feedback at that point of time, he might not have fallen down. But the story goes, he became attached to the deer, and he, in his next life, became a deer. Now, the Lord is always merciful. We really need to know that because there are ups and downs, and the material energy is bombarding us constantly. We're a tiny, tiny, tiny jiva soul encased in a material machine with a material mind, and we're being bombarded right and left. So it's quite challenging. So the Lord is not trying to make it harder for us. So the Lord really blessed Judd Bharat as the deer and gave him remembrance of his past life. And the Lord is the source of all remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So sometimes we forget the Lord. A lot of times we forget the Lord. And sometimes we remember the Lord. So the Lord helps us. So when we forget the Lord, we experience suffering, separation, confusion, and anxiety. And when we remember the Lord, we feel gratitude and excited. And both of these, remembrance and forgetfulness, are part of spiritual life. They're there to help us to see our tininess and how much anxiety there is when we forget the Lord. How much we're encased in action and reaction when we forget the Lord. And when we forget who we are and we forget our position. But Krishna is the source of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, and he loves us. So although we forget, he keeps coming to remind us and wake us up. He keeps coming. Remember me. He comes as the spiritual master. He comes through scripture. He comes as the devotees. He comes as feedback. Wake up. Remember me. And so Judd Bharat was able to remember his past life. And as a deer, he had a lot of time to reflect on his past mistake. And he was very clear that he was not going to make that mistake again. So when he came into his next life as a brahmana, he knew. He was very clear about his tininess. He was very clear that just by following the rules and regulations, just by strict sadhana, he was so strict, he was so elevated. But the material energy is so powerful. It's Krishna's energy. And we are marginal. We become affected by whatever we associate with. We become affected. And so he was very clear, I'm not going to make the same mistake again. I really need to protect myself. But he didn't do it in an arrogant way. He didn't shun others. He didn't push others away. He didn't push his relatives away. He didn't say, oh, you're in Maya, you're nonsense, I don't want to associate with you. Because that would have been arrogant. What he did was, It was ingenious, actually. He was a madman, and so he acted in such a way that others shunned him, and thereby protecting himself. So, how can we protect ourselves from bad association? It really depends on our consciousness. The material world is made of duality, right? Good, bad, right and wrong. As long as we are seeing duality, we need to discern what is going to really support us in our devotional life, what is favorable for our devotional life. So what's good for one devotee may not be favorable for another devotee. And what's unfavorable for another devotee may be favorable. So we have to be really conscious and honest ourselves. What is favorable for me? What is favorable? Is it favorable for me to shun my parents and ignore my parents? Is that favorable for me, or is that actually going to cause more problems in the future? Is my pushing my family and parents away, is that going to help me in my devotional life? And is it going to help them in their devotional life? So how can we be with others who are not inclined to devotional service? How can we be with them and not associate with them? Well, when we understand that they are part and parcel of Krishna, just like us. They're tiny parts of Krishna, and they are suffering, and they don't really know about Krishna, and they may not really at this point want to know about Krishna. They're suffering. When we can associate with that part of them and love that part of them and honor that part of them, we will want to bring them pratighātam. We will want to somehow bring them joy. We're not going to want to criticize them because they're already suffering enough. They don't need our feedback. That's not our job. We can share with them the excitement that we are experiencing in our devotional life. When I chant and I hear Krishna's name, I feel happy. I feel joyful that there's a deeper meaning and purpose in life. I feel excited that there is something that's eternal in this world, that lasts beyond this world, that we can always have and hold on to. It's something we're always looking for. We're looking for something eternal. And this connection with Krishna and Krishna consciousness gives me the faith and hope and enthusiasm and inspiration to go through this life with a deeper purpose. And so when our family can hear how we're excited and how things are working for us, our parents only want us to be happy. They don't want us to be upset. So when they see that we're happy and we're joyful, they may offer their concerns. How are you going to support yourself? You're not earning any money. How will you support yourself? And you can just say, for the time being, I'm doing this, I'm practicing this, I'm getting a foundation. I have trust in the Lord. And let's see what happens. And so, again, in association, oftentimes we are afraid of people out here. We're afraid of bad association. But there's something that we really have to contend with 24/7 that we sometimes neglect to fully take into consideration. So what is it that we have 24/7 with us? The mind, our mind. Our mind has all kinds of negative, bad association thoughts, right? We're bombarded by the material energy within our own mind. It seems that if we were more concerned with the association of our own mind and more concerned about how to properly utilize our mind rather than being bombarded by our mind, if we took more time in relating to our mind with compassion, we wouldn't be so worried about all this out here. Our mind can trick us into thinking that we are associating nicely while we condemn and criticize and judge those who are suffering and they're not practicing devotional service. Our mind can become arrogant and at the same time thinking it's protecting itself from bad association. Amazingly, the mind is quite tricky and quite subtle. And it seems that if we take the time to really notice what our mind is telling us, notice what thoughts in the minds are attracting and distracting us, and notice what practices really help us to deal with the mind. Individually, it may be different for each individual. If we took a lot of time to work on that, we wouldn't have time to criticize others. We would have a full-time job, full-time. We wouldn't have to criticize others. There would be no time for that. So Jad Bharat very carefully protected himself by remembering the Lord. So we want to see how can we remain fixed in our service. So devotional service, it elevates us. What does it say here? One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at one transcends the modes of material nature and comes to the level of Brahman. We might want to recognize how often we're falling down. Sometimes we think because we're living in the temple or we're chanting 16 rounds, we're initiated, we're following the regulative principles, that we're in full devotional service. But full devotional service is not external. Full devotional service is really internal. So paying attention to what's going on inside helps us to stay grounded, helps us to stay honest. And we want to deal with the mind. I mean, in my experience, I really tried to suppress my mind and push down the mind and ignore it and work very hard. There are some benefits to that. That is helpful, working very hard, especially when we're young, working hard. We have some direct service we can focus on. It's very helpful. At the same time, we want to watch and think, oh, I'm doing so much service. We want to watch the mind. Is the mind comparing us to others? is the mind telling us, oh, I'm better, I'm doing more service. We might want to just note those times when our mind tells us that. And then pray to Krishna, please, dear Krishna, help me to deal with my arrogance, which is obviously still there because it's telling me things which aren't true. So, in dealing with the mind, and dealing with our own mind, in dealing with our own devotional life, it takes real awareness, it takes real compassion, because we're so easily fooled by the mind, we're so easily distracted. So how can we deal with the mind? First, we want to understand. We want to understand that the mind actually has no power over us. Association, the material energy, actually has no power over us. We are marginal, but it has no power over us. Why does it seem so powerful? Why does the mind, if the mind has no power over us, why does it seem like it has power over us? Does anybody know? Please.
Because we are more marginal. We are not taking shelter of the other side.
We are marginal, and we're not taking shelter of Krishna. So what we're doing is we're taking shelter of that part. We're actually investing in it. We're buying into the thoughts, and we're believing the thoughts of the mind. And so the soul, we are kind of like leaning in that direction. We blame the mind. We blame the mind. But actually, it's our responsibility as a soul to know when we're leaning this way and when we're leaning this way. We're marginal, but that doesn't invalidate our responsibility. So it behooves us to take the responsibility. Which way am I leaning now? Am I leaning towards, those thoughts which really aren't true? Am I believing in those thoughts? Oh, you're so great, look at you. Am I believing in those thoughts? Oh, you're so rotten. All those duality thoughts, those thoughts that really take us away from thinking of Krishna. So learning to take responsibility for which thoughts we're believing in, which thoughts we're focusing in, when we're getting distracted, how we're getting distracted. And rather than being discouraged and upset when we're distracted, we can just see, oh, wow, I have a lot of work to do. My muscles are weak. There's a lot of exercise I need. I need to practice a lot. Rather than being discouraged and feeling sad and depressed and bad, we can think, thank you, Krishna, for showing me, laying out my homework. When we go for a degree, we've got 4, 6, whatever, how many years that it's going to take for us to get the degree. And we see the curriculum laid out in front of us, right? So when Krishna shows us what we got to work on, it's like, oh, thank you, now I know what to work on, rather than being discouraged. Oh, I'm not pure yet. What's wrong? Oh, thank you for showing me what is the next thing I need to work on so I can get that degree of love. Anyways, it's 10 minutes to 9, and I just wanted to say thank you all for coming and leave a little time for some questions or comments or corrections. Hare Krishna, if anybody has. 1, 2? 1, 2? Yeah, go ahead. Do you have a microphone? Thank you, microphone runner in the front.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Haribol.
Thank you very much for this self-realized presentation of the working of mind, and your sharing your realizations how this body is a machine and the mind is
a machine.
Of course, yes.
It's a machine.
More subtle machine. Yes. So, how do we know? At what point can we realize that we are? I am becoming more externally conscious rather than being more conscious of my mind as bad association, and when the mind starts I start buying into the mind's ideas that the bad association is outside. How can we, where do we start?
We start where we are. We can only start where we are. We start today, and when a thought comes up, when we notice a thought coming up, sometimes it might start with only when we're getting disturbed. If we're focused and we're doing our service, but when we're getting disturbed, that's a good time to look at the mind. That's a great time to look at the mind. What is going on there? What am I disturbed about? Oh, this. Who said I have to be disturbed about this? My mind. And a lot of times we have a need that's not being met. So it's like, oh, they're not acknowledging me, nobody cares, So we're jiva tattva, we have a need for care and love. Brahmacharis are people too. They have needs for love and care and appreciation. So we can acknowledge that. Okay, I have a little need for this. I don't have to blame everybody for not giving it to me, but if I need it, maybe I can appreciate the fact that I didn't blame others. I can appreciate myself. Oh, I just realized that I have a need for appreciation, and I appreciate that I didn't blame others for not appreciating me. There you go. You got appreciation. You didn't blame others. You understood your frustration, and you looked at your mind. So it starts with when you're upset. That's an easy time to look at your mind because it's definitely bombarding you. And then the practice becomes more and more, you can get more tuned. And every time you just even feel a little pinch, like not when you're fuming out the top of your head, but you're just like then you think, well, what is that? What's going on? Why am I clenching my fists? What am I thinking right now? I'm thinking like, God, I wish I could get more sleep or, whatever. And then you just look at that and examine that and see, maybe I do need more sleep. How can I balance? How can I balance my life? Because it takes everything we've got to be Krishna conscious. That's why Bhagavad Gita says, don't eat too much, don't eat too little, don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little, because if the body is out of balance, the mind goes out of balance, and then our devotional service becomes maybe drudgery. So we want to help ourselves to be able to balance by understanding what the physical needs are. So that's where it starts. Okay, Hare Krishna. The battery's not working? Great. There we go. Magic. Thank you, Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
I just want to know that does it also depends that Vaishnava mercy is also responsible for dealing with mind?
Absolutely. It does depend on the mercy, but are we even open to receiving the mercy? The mercy is coming right and left, but are we blocking the mercy? Are we able to grasp the mercy? If someone mercifully, gives us some encouraging words, do we push them and say, no, I'm not that, I'm this? We want appreciation, but then when someone gives that to us, we push it away because we think we shouldn't be taking appreciation, so I should be lower than the fallen and push it away. I don't deserve it. I should give it to somebody else. So are we able to receive the mercy? That's a big question. The mercy's all around us. The blessings are there. Daily, Krishna is wanting to bless us. Krishna's our Father. He doesn't want to see us suffer. The spiritual master gives us books, but can we receive the mercy? So then we have to see, are there ways in which I'm blocking the mercy? Am I blocking the mercy? When do I push away the mercy? How do I not receive the mercy? It does depend on the mercy. We are simply made of mercy. We are getting blessed constantly. If we actually realized how many blessings we were getting, we would be so grateful. But instead, we're looking at, I didn't get this, and I didn't get that, and Krishna doesn't love me, and he's giving me a hard time. Sometimes, when Krishna gives us a really hard time, that is the best mercy. But do we receive it, or do we say, why me? Why are you doing this to me? I'm trying so hard. You're making it harder for me. Why? If we say, oh, wow, Krishna, I didn't really expect this. This is a little inconceivable. It's a little hard for me to handle, but I know you're trying to give me something wonderful. Help me to see, what do you want me to learn from this? And when we embrace all the things that come to us, the good, the bad, the ugly, when we embrace them and we say, what do you want me to learn from this? Then we're open to receive, and then we become blessed. We become blessed by those circumstances which are meant to wear down our rough edges and our sharp corners, right? We're getting sanded, right? Krishna's sanding down our sharp corners, and we feel the abrasion. And instead of being thankful, thank you for making me smooth and soft and compassionate, we're like, why are you hurting me? So can we receive the mercy? A lot of times we can receive the mercy when it comes the way we want it to come. Oh, you are so great, and bless you, and may you have all good fortune and everything, every day always be wonderful, and you're always happy. We want those blessings. We want that mercy. The mercy's coming to us, but can we receive it? And the rough mercy, when we receive it and we're thankful, thank you for giving me the effects of my past karma and helping me to work this out, helping me to understand I never want to treat someone the way I've just been treated. Help me to learn, thank you for this agent of my karma and how they really showed me, wow, that's what it feels like when someone speaks like that. Please, Krishna, help me not speak like that to others. You take that, then you get the mercy. So yes, depends on the mercy, but can we receive the mercy? Hare Krishna. It's 9:00, and I know you all have many, many services. So if anybody wants to ask any other questions, or if anybody wants a copy of the book, I'm up here after class, and I'm available sometime in the morning. So all glories to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to the assembled devotees.